What's going on, YouTube? Welcome to T90 versus Nili. Here we are in this best of 3 between two casting legends, playing it out in the Return of the Reverse Pick tournament. As you have seen, or probably have seen in the announcement video I posted about a week ago, I will start mixing in some additional content to what I've done so far, and part of that will be getting back to some AoE2 costs. I won't be costing as much as I did back in my quote-unquote prime days, the time where I focused on AoE2 on a daily basis, but I will be popping out some AoE2 content, and as I said, the first run of that will be here with T90 versus Nili. Now, in this tournament, you basically pick civilizations for the opponent. That's kind of the logic behind the entire event. Of course, there are some nitty-gritty details that we will go into as we go deeper into this set. But without further ado, let's jump straight into the first game. I'm curious to see how these guys will play it out, especially because ever since I kind of stopped casting AoE2, T90 emerged as one of the more notable names as a player as well. He started playing in a lot of smaller tourneys and has found quite a lot of success, actually. So I'm genuinely interested in seeing how he's going to evolve as a player as well. He's going to spawn on the left side as the Slavs in blue, and to the right side we do have Nili playing as the Gurjaras in red. The map is Lowland, a map that you probably have seen in Red Bull Volo before, and right off the bat, the first thing I'm noticing is how different the starting maps are for the two players. You look at Nili's map, this is a well-wallable map, pretty much surrounded by the starting forests he has. Contrary to that, T90's map is abysmal. He's got some wallability on the right side and the left side, but the front is wide open. The only goal that's realistically accessible for him is out here, wide open. The second goal he has is also at a terrible spot. This is just impossible to defend. Whereas for Nili, he's got his goal at a very nice safe spot. Hunt is safe. His stone is kind of underwhelming, but that's just a small detail. I think looking at the two maps, it's pretty clear that Nili has a huge advantage in that regard. And I'm curious to see how T90 is going to have to compensate for that. I think to start things off, he's going to have to be the aggressor. He's going to have to be the one pushing Nili and forcing Nili to defend. Otherwise, he's just going to lose out on the map control. T90 cannot afford to play a defensive game over here. Whereas for Nili, as much as T90 has to play aggressive, Nili can afford to be a little bit more defensive, given how well defendable his base is. So in this tournament, basically, you're picking the civilization for the opponent, which is a concept that has been kind of lingering around the AoE2 scene for quite a while. But for quite a few years, this idea wasn't really utilized, because some of the civilizations were extremely weak compared to others. You go back to the Wobbly times, civilizations like the Vietnamese, the Khmer, they were extremely weak. That was before the Khmer got their huge food buff. In those times, people didn't really consider running tournaments like this, because if you made players pick these underwhelming civilizations, just pick civilizations for the opponent, you would have seen tournaments using the same 3 civilizations all the time. But now with some more balancing going into the game, and also having a huge diversity of maps available, you can play around this concept quite a bit, and you see Slavs and Gurjaras, these are not necessarily civilizations about which you would just say, hey, it's a bad civ, I don't want to... Well, it's like, to put this into context, when you play, or when you pick civilizations for your opponent, you want to give them something weak. Now, weak is a relative term, because obviously it needs to be interpreted in the context of the map that it is being played on. It needs to be interpreted in the context of the playstyle of the opponent and many other factors. But still, at the end of the day, you're trying to pick a civilization for the opponent that's pretty weak. And these civilizations, definitely not top-notch in the current meta, but it's not like you would say, hey, Slavs is such an abysmal civilization. Has a great food eco. I'm curious to see how T90 is going to use that. In the meantime, of course, you do have the Gurjaras as well. One of the things to note with them, of course, is the concept of being able to garrison the sheep for food trickle inside the mill. And of course, spawning with this one extra forage bush right by the TC. Nili has been using Hunt here. That's not something that we talked about. He's actually pushed up a couple of Ibexes right from the lowland area, and only after that shifted towards the Ibexes inside his base. That obviously gives him a little extra food to work with, and I kind of like that choice because at this point, especially on this map, if we switch to Nili's POV, you can see he scouted nothing. All Nili did in Dark Age was pushing Ibexes. But on this map, the spawn of your opponent is pretty predictable, and especially when you're up against the Slavs, it's somewhat unlikely that you see a militia opening in Dark Age, so you probably don't need that much scouting intel in Dark Age. You can justify pushing in the extra Ibexes and just getting that food eco up and running. Nili is the first feudal, went up with 17 vills, whereas for T90 he's going to play with 18. Slight difference, and Nili is going to open with a stable. As you see, he already started preparing the walls. He's going to house up the north. He's going to have the walls on the front. T90 is going to scout how well defendable Nili's base is. And this is where the alarm bells need to start ringing for T90. T90 needs to see that, hey, if I don't pressure Nili, it's going to be very difficult to do any damage here. It's so well defendable, and Nili is pretty much halfway done with the walling already. Looks like T90 will get some walls up as well. He has scouted the stable, so he needs to respect Nili's ability to get some scouts on the field, which means that he needs some walls back at home if he's afraid about the aggression going into his base and him not being able to quick wall. Nili is just now scouting the TC location of Tristan, as T90 will have some nice and comfy walls. Key thing is that his gold is exposed right now. Now, as I said, one way to negate this problem would be to play aggressive. Alternatively, he could play a slightly extended feudal age and then move towards that. Ooh, Nili got a hit on that camel scout from the spear. That's not nice. But he could also play into a tower here. Could be interesting to see. And the T90 is moving in with the scouts, trying to prevent those walls. There's a third scout. That's actually a spearman coming through. Third scout is lagging behind quite a bit. In fact, there's not even a third scout for T90. He's going heavy into the spearman, but the walls are coming up. Spearman coming out as well for Nili. Walls on the way. T90 only has 2 scouts over here. With 2 scouts, a camel, and a spearman from Nili, these guys should not be able to do much damage. T90 is trying to even things out by bringing in a spearman of his own, and you love to see how Nili is trying to push away the spear with the villager. One scout goes down from T90. Spearman working wonders here for Nili. Camel scout is the point of focus from T90. Gets a couple of good hits in with his spears. But now that Nili sees that there are no more scouts coming up, he is not going to fight this. He's actually just trying to get the walls up. There is still a hole here, but this is no big deal. Spearman will not do any major damage, and it looks like T90 is playing very heavily into the Spearman. He's got 6 of them out there, only supported by 1 scout. Nili is yet to place a range. No skirms, no archers coming out from him just yet, but he's got the walls up, which means that these spears should not be able to accomplish much. T90 is walled... Wait a second. Wait a second. Hold the phone. Oh no. T90 should know this. He technically sees this, but you never know. Maybe he thinks there are some trees here. I don't think... You wouldn't deliberately leave this open. It's like a single tile of a palisade. I'm worried for T90 because this could ruin his entire game. Although, Nili looks like he would just run past the TC. There is a hole out there. Camel Scout goes down. But the scouts will get in. Quick walls did not work out for T90 as he wanted. 3 scouts, some of them damaged though. Villagers could fight back here. T90 will try to pull the villagers. And indeed, many of the scouts having been battered, the villagers might find some success against them, but the villagers, they are just fighting one by one instead of in a group, and that means that the scouts are still alive. First scout goes down, traded off to a villager. Second scout also down, but T90 loses the second will as well to the scout, and Nili will just disengage, get some more scouting intel. Looks like T90 is going for market. He's going to go towards the gold as well. Trying to do some poking around with the spears close to Nili's base. And for Nili, he's banking up a lot of food. There's a blacksmith coming up as well. And he's moving towards gold. Feels like Nili might just want to go Castle Age. Note the detail of Nili garrisoning the spears inside the TC to heal them. It's not like he has anything better to do with them, so might as well just get the maximum value out of them. Might as well heal them up inside the TC. On the other side, T90 is also banking up food, so looks like both players will be getting towards Castle Age, which raises a question now. What kind of unit compositions can we expect from these players, given that both of them will reach Castle Age approximately at the same time? So, looking at the Gurjaras, it's a tricky choice, because you could play into the cavalry, especially if you support it with a couple of camels, but I don't think you want to play against the knight plus monk combination of the Slavs. Gurjaras don't have horse archers, so that's a problem. You cannot just play into cav archers. Playing into archers feels underwhelming, so I guess it's gotta be the Shrivamsha Riders. Shrivamsha Rider, maybe a couple of camels supporting it would be intriguing. Whereas on the other side, T90 just dropped the range. Now, I don't know how I feel about this. For the time being, these archers would just be good to pick off the spears that Nili has. But especially against the Shrivamsha Riders, it feels awkward to have a range because I don't think you go mass crossbows here. Especially not with the Slavs. Nili and T90 going up to Castle Age. You see, Nili's got a head start of 20 seconds, plus a villager lead of 2. No Wilbur on either side. That's because T90 lost 2 villagers. There was slightly more idle time on the TC of Nili, actually. But at the end of the day, this is a nice little lead that Nili possesses. Range will be scouted by Nili. A Spearman will trade some HP against the ones of T90, but not much is gonna be accomplished on either side from this engagement. I guess one critical detail that Nili does see is, A, the range. Let's take a look at Nili's POV for a sec. So, he sees the range, he sees the market, and he saw the gold miners. I assume he saw the amount of gold miners on gold. He was pretty close to this location. And if he sees the amount of gold miners, he should know that this is Castle Age coming in for T90. There's the blacksmith. There's a stable up already for him. He went up with horse collar and double bit axe, so standard eco upgrades out there for him. Same thing for Nili. And now, you look at the 90s POV, I think he didn't catch the gold miners. But he should know that Nili is going Castle Age over here. In a blink of an eye, he's going to realize, if he didn't already know. And it looks like Nili will play into extra TCs. First one goes out on the stone. He could work towards a third one. Would be a lovely spot here on the second gold. It looks like he's going to play no army so far. Not a single unit coming in for Nili up until now. Shrivamsha Riders on the way. And for T90, there's a second TC up there. It's gonna protect the stone. And come to think of it, speaking of Nili's second additional town center, it's gonna be all the way at the back. So, one thing that Nili did not secure with this, or with these 2 extra TCs, is gold. He's got some gold still in his base, but he's gonna have to move towards either this gold pile or this lowland area. And I'm actually interested to see whether T90 places his additional TC or the next additional TC on this gold, or maybe this gold. He's got a lot of pikes. So he could secure this area, and I wouldn't be against it. This would be a lovely spot for a TC. He's playing into pikes, he's got a monk out there already. On the other side, Shrivamsha Riders just zooming around. 1.76 movement speed is no joke, folks. These guys just fly. Here come the pikes. Nili runs into the pikeman, though. Beautiful bait by T90. One Shrivamsha Rider goes down. A scout killed as well. And the second Shrivamsha just battered down to oblivion. A lovely bait here by T90. Nili's playing 3 TCs. T90, for the time being, sticking to 2. He's also depleting some of the farms, so he's going to have to address that. But he's getting some monks going. There's a relic here that he could take. Relic here as well, pretty much uncontested. Might even take this one, and there's a third TC. Very intriguing spot for T90. This spot is not an obvious spot for him. If he wanted to secure gold and wood, probably this would have been closer to his base and easier to defend. If he wanted a gold that's close to his base and kind of out of sight, this would have been the gold. This is an intriguing spot because this is kind of hidden from Nili for the time being. It's a bit of a sneaky extra TC. It's going to secure this gold. It's going to secure all these trees. But it's kind of at this lowlandish area where if Nili is aggressive from this angle, it could be concerning to defend. I think a lot comes down to when Nili scouts that. Shiramsha Rider is moving in. Notice the little detail of targeting the full HP Shiramsha Rider. Not the weak one is being targeted by T90. Try to quick wall this. Spearman also out there to help. Means that there will be no success for Nili getting any villager picks. He's been on 3 TCs and he's working his way towards Scorpions. He has a villager lead of 10 already, so that's quite respectable. That third TC that came up much sooner than T90's is working wonders right now for him. Look at this. Scout placed over here for T90 for some extra vision. I love that. He's also roaming around this relic here, trying to intercept some monks. And as things are standing, T90 should have the advantage when it comes to the relics. He's bringing this one in. This should be guaranteed for him, although there are some Shiramsha Riders poking around the area. This one he's just now walking towards, and there is no one from T90, or from Nili rather, to contest that. Another Shiramsha Rider goes down. Was it 2? Yeah, I think it was 2. Nili has lost so many units. He's got 8 kills to 18 losses. These are some tremendous picks by T90. In fact, so much so that Nili is sitting on 5 army against 21. This is the point where T90 can start thinking about some mangonels. He's got one out there, but that's actually at home. Given the circumstances, especially when the first mangonel arrives and secures this area, he could think about the second siege workshop up front. Oh, Shiramsha Riders once again. Gotta be cautious with the pikes. First knight on the way. There is no one from T90 that can protect those Scorpions from the knight. That's a big thing. These Scorpions, if the knight jumps on them, it's all she wrote. Love the outpost as well. T90 is making sure that he won't get surprised over here. I don't think that Nili even knows about this expansion. Yeah, look at this. Nili has no idea about this. He might know that there's a third TC, but he doesn't know the exact spot. T90 picks off a monk. And here comes the mangonel. Here come the pikes. 26 army against 7. Nili has 600 stone in the bank. He needs a little more for a castle. And I think T90 is spotting all these villagers working towards stone. He should know what's coming. Also, T90 is busy trying to kill an Ibex with a mangonel. We don't talk about this. We don't talk about this, folks. We talk about the mangonel. We talk about the Scorpions. And the fact that if this castle doesn't go up for Nili, he could be in trouble. Mangonel shot, working wonders though. First Scorpion gets picked off by the knights, second one will follow. Pikemen will poke around the villagers, but the mangonel is doing work. And it looks like the mangonel should be enough to damage these pikes to a point where if Nili had a couple more Shiramsha Riders, maybe he could take this with some mangonel support. Another good hit. Here come the mangonels though. Nili has gotten enough stone for the castle, but he is going to get pushed away from the stone. Gate is actually open thanks to the villagers. A couple of spikes go in, but they just run into their death. Town center picks all of them off. Nice mangonel shot from Nili. Gets rid of that critical mangonel from T90, the only mangonel that T90 had. And in the meantime, look at that. One Shiramsha Rider, the lonely hero picking off villagers from T90. Somehow snuck in. Started killing villagers, and it looks like T90 is not responding to that. T90? Tristan. Tristan, something needs to happen here. This guy is gonna be a hero. Oh no, I don't have the premium to show you the kill that stats. Anyways, a lot of pikes were killed before. Allows the camels to take a much more legitimate engagement. Knights could run inside here with the gate open, but instead they will target the villagers. Mangonel is still out there. Gets a good ground attack, but the villagers will get pushed away from the castle. Knights still working wonders, and the pikes arrive back into this one again. Nili is trying to convert the knights inside. One conversion goes. There's a monk here from T90 as well. It's getting very chaotic here at the front of Nili's base. Villagers once again pulled to get this castle up. There are so many of them, but some pikes around, some knights around. T90 is just trying to maximize his damage output here. Quite a few Scorpions went down here. Quite a few villagers were killed from T90. It's 14-8 is the Eco KD because of this hero, though. Look at the Eco KD. 15-10 in the favor of Nili. All because of this guy. This guy is the hero of Nili's empire. Gets another pick. What a lovely day for this one Shrivamsha rider. And now with this castle up for Nili, things get a lot more safe. T90 opted to go for a 4th DC behind this one. So did Nili. Both of them are now on 4. Villager count's pretty much even, so is the army count. Now when it comes to the relics, T90 is at 2. He has 1 relic over here that has been picked up but never delivered back home. And there should be 1 additional one under his control. I think he took the one from the middle, and he should have taken the one from here. No way! You cannot be serious. Obviously there are multiple overchops here, but this is the 2nd time a single cavalry unit comes into the eco of T90. And it's working wonders. That's a converted knight from T90, by the way. Got a couple of villager picks, and this is gonna be so annoying to clean up. Castle on the way for T90. He's moving towards the north. Oh yeah, there's the monk. He's coming home with that relic. And then there is this one. So we're going to have 4 relics for T90, just 1 for Nili. Nili trying to get a pick here on this monk, but with the castle fire, it's gonna be challenging. He's dodging the bullets, gets the pick, and gets out alive. As I'm saying that, I just cast a curse Nili. There goes the scout. At least he paid for his price. Nili behind this, on the way to Imperial. He has 5 DCs working now. Imp DC is this one, nice and safe. Is it? Which is the Imp DC? I thought it was this one. Yeah, this is the Imp DC, alright. That's a safe one for Nili. Nili is coming out with outposts as well, just now realizing that T90 is out here on the right flank. Looks like we do have a lot of Scorpions tracking these spikes. Granted, we got so many monks here for Nili that he could just convert the majority of the pikes and that would still be satisfactory. Knight would be a big deal to convert though, and T90 would just delete it. Nice decision there, he didn't want to lose it. And it looks like this aggression is just gonna be repelled. T90 working his way towards light cav. But he does so still being in Castle Age. Bear joining the fun over here, helping out T90 a little. Nili's villager is gone from the right flank. A couple of pikes still trying to raid, or at least do some level of harassment. It's not like they accomplish much, especially with the chakram throwers out there. But behind this, T90 is queuing up quite a few light cav. He's got a lot of food income, so he could work his way towards Castle Age soon. You see he's got 20 light cav in queue, and he's banking up a lot of food. Means that he could be an Imperial in the next few minutes, but he needs to bridge this gap. He needs to buy himself some time until he gets to Imperial. And that could be challenging, because Nili's got a lot. It's a very slow-moving army, the chakram throwers, the pikes, the scorpions. But if it starts rolling, T90 could be in trouble. Scorpions will push away these wheels. And Nili, he's moving towards stone. This is where Nili will start adding additional stone miners, and probably go for a more aggressive castle. Somewhere around over here, maybe here. Obviously secured by the chakram throwers and the spears. And he's also going heavy camel here. He saw the light calves and now he's responding to them. T9 is on the way to Imperial, but he has shown his hand with the light calf. Oh, that's a beautiful pick though. So many Scorpions are hard to find a good angle on with the light cav without losing most of them. But once he jumps on them, that's all over for the light cav. Beautiful surround from T90. 7 Scorpions will meet their maker thanks to this light cav raid from T90. That's a lovely move, and it comes at a critical time for T90. Just when Nili was planning to start rolling the chakram throwers and the Scorpions, these light cav come in and start stomping those Scorpions. Villagers will also get caught in the crossfire. And you see, Nili is trying to get a castle up over here. T90 maximizes damage output, picks off a couple of monks here, and he sees the heavy camel upgrade. He knows what his opponent is now going for. Problem is that dealing with this is gonna be a challenge. Camel and chakram thrower, especially the camel part, is gonna be a little expensive for Nili. But there is a lot of gold on this map to work well. Hold on. Okay, this is just bikes. There are some light calves here from T90 as well. These are more annoying, but These little blue dots, for a moment I thought T90's overrunning Nili's eco with light cav, but quite a few of them are just pikes. Still, the raids are getting better and better, and you see T90 isn't stopping. His light cavs are getting a lot of good picks. T90 up to 30 eco kills. He's coming up with one of the unique techs for Slavs. A tech that has only been recently added, and when I say recently, I'm looking at the long-term history of AoE2. Detonets, of course. That's a huge tech here for T90. Replacing the stone cost of castles with wood is just such a game changer. And especially when you are so stretched out across the map, you want to have the safety of those castles. For now, he only has one castle, by the way. This being said, T90's light cav are doing work, and you see this is what's happening. I'm just now noticing this expansion to the right side. He had 2 stables up here, and he's trickling in some light cavs to the wide open eco of Nili. Not only is he picking off a lot of villagers, he's forcing a lot of idle time. For a moment ago, Nili had 40 idols. You see, this farming eco is not working. No one is working these farms. A lot of villagers idle here, here. These raids are working wonders. And you see now the Hussar upgrade is in. Slowly coming in, trying to focus down those chakram throwers. Chakram throwers aren't super tanky, so if you jump them with mass light cav, they can get wiped out easily. And it looks like now the light cav will once again come in. They'll try to push away the villagers from this gold mine, Nili trying to get some stone walls going to slow down these raids. But Nili is bleeding eco, folks. He's losing more and more. And now we have Halberdiers out there for T90 that will deal with the heavy camels. And against the chakram throwers, you could play into the light cav, or you could play into onagers with the Slavs. Looks like T90, for the time being, will just play with the Hussars. But I could see onagers being a thing at some point. But as long as this opening remains out there for Nili, T90 will keep exploiting that with the Hussars. And you see, he's getting great value. He's idling so much of Nili's eco. And it's not even getting alarming in terms of the food eco for Nili. The worrisome detail is the wood eco. He only has 8 lumberjacks right now. There's also barracks over here for T90. He's spreading out his production well, and he is just attacking from multiple flanks. Nili's army, mostly chakram throwers, they are slow to catch up with all these raids, and this is why T90 can exploit this combination of the mobility and the spread out production infrastructure, because T90's, or because Nili's army is so much slower than what T90 can bring in. Hussars still looking for villagers to pick. There are some to the north. That's actually all the lumberjacks that Nili has. Well, excluding 2. 6 out of 8. T90 trying a castle in the middle. He has stacked up 3 trebs. The chakrams will move to the north, trying to get rid of these raids. But as they do, there is no one to contest these trebs. Well, other than a single camel rider. And this castle could just melt in a blink of an eye. Don't forget, Nili needs those castles not only for defense, but also to produce the chakram throwers. Here come the chakrams. Halberdiers will evaporate, that is for sure, but the trebs will survive. Nili trying to pull some repair vills. 16 vills against 2 trebs. Actually 4 trebs, beg your pardon. That's way too few for Nili, and the castle should fall unless a single trebuchet gets picked. Beautiful lineup for Nili, by the way. Gets a triple on the trebuchets, but it comes at a little too late of a time. 1 castle went down. There's a second trebuchet over here. Not being repaired. Some camels are focusing it. It looks like T90 will lose that trap. So Nili keeps some of his castles alive. And the number of chakram throwers is increasing. Looks like we'll have some boyars coming in here for T90. It's got 3 castles working now. It's got 10 boyars out there already. Only 2 hussars. Kind of stopped producing hussars. And that's because he's saving up food for elite boyar. Here comes the elite. He's gonna go heavy on that. But he's about to possibly lose a castle here. He's not repairing this, and Nili's got 2 traps firing down hills. So if he wants to commit to Boyars, he might need a couple more castles. Remember, he's got discounted castles, so it's a little easier for him to get those going. But it's not like he's got a lot of stone to work with. Here come the Boyars, though. They will try to jump the chakrams. There are some camels blocking their way. Good body blocks by Nili. Boyars yet to reach the chakram throwers, but here come the Hobbs. Some more camels join the fun. For now, Boyars will focus down the Trebs, but T90 is fighting up hills. The chakram throwers are throwing their discs down hills, and would you look at that massacre? Might have been slightly overzealous by T90 fighting against that. He tried to save his castle by sniping the Trebs, but that did not come to fruition. And now he's in a position where he just lost a bunch of pricey Boyars. It's also a unit that he paid a lot of money for the elite upgrade on. And you see he's bottlenecked onto the production. He's got 2 castles, each of them 5 Boyars queued. Now, as long as he's close to pop cap, this is no big issue. But if he wants to go mass Boyars, 2 castles will be far from sufficient. This piece of infrastructure is still out there, and you see T90 is going for capped ramp. It's likely that we will see a ramp push coming in on this flank. And I would think that he's going to combine that with an assault in the middle. He wants to pull the chakrams to the middle to fight, and then at the same time unleash like 15 rams, supported by some halberdiers, maybe some light cav, and just wipe out the farming eco. We're getting to the stage of the game where both players start to run out of safe resources. You see, it's essentially battlefield mining now for Nili, on the stone, on the gold. And for both players, oh, look at that, chakram throwers once again getting some beautiful picks. It's actually annoying for T90. That's 5 traps. You do not want to lose that. Nili closes the distance before firing and gets rid of most of the traps. These chakram throwers are just wiping everything out here. T90 is up to 28 Boyars. That's definitely something that Nili needs to respect. But as long as this big ball of chakram throwers are out there, it's so challenging for T90 to do anything against them. So, I guess the recipe for T90 is just raiding Nili to oblivion, and then maybe trying to take one good fight here with the Boyars. Some onagers would be lovely, but they are nowhere to be found right now for T90. Camels will clean up this group of Boyars. There is a group inside Nili's eco now, and you see he lost most of his villagers. Nili's eco is slowly falling apart. It has been raid after raid for a while, and it started to take a toll on Nili. In fact, T90 killed 141 vills. There were just never-ending raids, and this is the big difference between the two players. Nili's army was very static. It's a slow-moving army. This group of chakrams are great to fight with, but they cannot give you that raiding potential that T90 has with the Boyars, or what he had with the Hussars before. And now here come the Rams. If you lose one of these castles, that's going to be painful. You could lose some more farming infrastructure. Possibly even a couple of TCs, which could make it difficult for Nili to rebuild that lost eco. And as much as I love 38 chakrams in one group, if that's the only thing that Nili has, it's troublesome. Here comes the ram push. As expected, T90 is going to pull a diversion here. He's pulling the chakrams and the camels to the north, and at the same time sending in the rams. He's focusing down the castle. Castle will melt in a blink of an eye, and as he's doing that, he's also sending in some hubs on the front. Nili is losing way too many villagers. He's dropping in population. Lost the TC. His Boyars on the north, T90's Boyars those are, they just got cleaned up in a blink of an eye, but Nili's got nowhere to go. You see his eco is just crumbling at this point. He's got 25 vills on food. As long as this group of chakrams are alive, Nili's got a shot. But at this point, all that T90 needs to do is clean this group up. That's it. Which I guess is easier said than done, but if this army ever gets cleaned up, Nili is done. Some halberdiers will come in here, helping clean up the camels. Rams will be cleaned up, but you see Nili lost 2 TCs, he lost the castle, he lost a lot of precious farming eco, and things are just not looking good for him right now. Or at least, eco-wise, they don't look good. Again, as long as these chakrams are alive, there is some hope. Nili is also starting to deplete the gold sources, and for someone going for the pricey camels, contrary to the halberdiers that T90 is making, that's getting alarming. It's not like T90 has a lot of gold to work with either, but he can go for the combo of hussars and halberdiers and he's gonna be fine. And on the other side, you see Nili wanted to and did respond to the hussars with the camels. That will not be sustainable with only this gold available and only 1 relics. Boyars will move in. Nili will likely drop underneath 60 villagers at this point. There's just nowhere to go for him now. Hussars are raiding his eco. His gold miners are history. Rams are pushing. In fact, Rams are now starting to focus these castles. There are only 2 TCs and 2 castles left for Nili. Villagers are gone. I think it's over. I think that's it for T90, or for Nili. And of course, that's it for T90 as well. He's going to get out of game number 1 as the winner. If you would want to summarize why T90 won this game, or why T90 will win this game in the next few moments, it's all about the raids. It's all about the eco KD, 206 against 57. T90's KD is less than 1, and Nili has been taking really good and cost-effective engagements in the middle of the map with the chakram throwers. But one thing that Nili could never accomplish is get into the eco of T90. Most of these villager kills for Nili came from a single Shravamsha rider and a single knight. That's all. Beyond that, there was no major eco damage done on T90, and he could just grind down the eco of Nili. Nili is down to just 107 population. He still has 30 chakram throwers, but replacing them is next to impossible now. You see, he's got out of gold, his food income is bad, no wood. His eco is near non-existent, which means that all T90 needs to do is make sure he doesn't die to this group of chakram throwers. Looks like T90 is regrouping in the middle. He knows fully well that Nili's eco is toast. He's no longer raiding. He's got a couple of units still trickled in, but he's regrouping in the middle. He knows fully well that at this point, the only thing that Nili has going for him is the army of chakram throwers still in the middle. He's also bringing in some trebuchets, so he's going to start sieging down these castles. He will try to force a fight against the Nili, and Nili's gonna have to respect that because he cannot afford to lose these castles. Nili added some new TCs on the northern side, by the way. So, if this game goes extremely long, there is a world in which Nili recovers. He's gonna need a lot of time for that, though, and I do not think that T90 will give him that. Here come the Rams. In fact, Trebs are even being pulled back. Rams will be the main front line here. Here come the Chakram throwers. And T90 doesn't have his whole army here. You see, when your units line up like that, the Chakram throwers just massacre them. Cost effectiveness is up in the skies for Nili here. He's doing a great job with this group of Chakram throwers. You see, the other underappreciated element here is that he uses his hussars and camels to body block the boyars from reaching the chakram throwers, and it makes it very difficult for T90 to do any damage on these bad boys. These are very fragile units, so if the boyars get close, they can pick them off very easily. But one thing that Nili has been doing really well is shield these chakram throwers from the hussars, from the boyars. Again, this is all nice and cool, but Nili needs about a dozen more fights like this to have a shot in this game. Here come the Hussars again. One thing that T90 could do is go for a siege workshop on the north, get some rams going, get some pressure done on the northern side as well. But for the first time in this game, possibly, he's getting some raids going on T90's side. Another wave of Hussars coming in here for T90. At this point, the map is starting to run very low on gold, so that's where the 4 relics that T90 has comes into play. And now he's going to push with the trebs. He realized that he cannot push this one with the rams. Chakram throwers will just take them down way too fast. So instead, he's going to bring up the trebs, start shelling the castle, and then say, okay, if you want to fight, come out here. Now, problem for T90 is that Nili is out here, and I do not think that T90 has enough to defend these trebs with. Looks like he's going to hold off the first wave, but here come the Chakram throwers. And when they arrive, you see, Nili will try to choose this angle from right here and just throw one volley to wipe out all the traps. Indeed, here they come. T90 will try to shield the traps here, but I think Nili will snipe all of them. Here come the Chakrams. A lot of the Chakrams are sacrificed, though. That's heavy casualties for T90 on the traps. In fact, he only loses one. 3 of them remain damaged, but this is a disaster now for Nili. He wanted to take down the trebs, but he wasn't able to, and now he lost most of the Chakrams. If he took down the trebs, it's a bittersweet moment. He trades his Chakrams to the trebs, but he traded basically all of his Chakrams for just 2 of the trebs. And with that, he's sitting at 84 population. He will tap out. And with that, T90 takes the win in the first game here. You see, again, when you look at the villager count in general, and in general the population, you see this rapid decline, especially beyond the Imperial Age. That's where the raids started to intensify. So Nili went from about 126 vills at minute 53 down to 79 by minute 58, and by an hour and 3 minutes down to 49 vills. In about 10 minutes game time, give or take, T90 obliterated 2/3 of Nili's eco. And that's something that's extremely difficult to come back from. Now, when you look at T90's eco, on the other hand, especially you look at beyond the 40-minute mark when he was fully boomed, it's a steady 140. That's difficult to accomplish on a map like this, even if you're not getting raided hard, because a lot of your villagers will be mining gold and stone in the middle when battles are happening around them. So, the fact that T90 barely lost villagers in this area of the game, at least until, let's say, the 55-minute mark, just goes to show how little Nili could do to hit the eco of T90, and that's part of the reason why T90 emerged victorious. The cost efficiency of Nili's fights were so much better. You see the KD is 1.5 against 0.066. So, it really was a matter of grinding down the opponent with never-ending floods of units versus taking very cost-effective engagements but not being able to win in the big picture because you could never stop the flood. You could never hit the eco and never stop the flood of units. With that, let's go back and let's take a look at what's coming up in game number 2. Here are the civilizations again. Obviously, Gurjaras and the Slavs will be removed from the available civilizations. So, we are going to Nili's home map, which I think is going to be Aftermath. And indeed it is. The game is up, so let's jump straight in. We're going to add a point to T90 over here. And we are going in, folks. Yeah, give me a sec. And in we go. So the map is Aftermath, and we will have T90 playing as the Tatars, and Vietnamese will be the civilization choice for Nili. Spawning in on the southern side of the map, we will have Nili playing as the Vietnamese in red, and to the north, it's gonna be T90 as the Tatars in blue. Looks like we're a couple of seconds behind, but this is a map where we do have a lot of things happening early on. In fact, we do have a villager here that has been picked off. Come on, Rewind is a premium feature. I really need to renew my Capture Rate subscription. Anyways, you see a dead villager here. That's basically T90's starting will out there. We could, I guess, restart the replay, but whatever. So, looking at Aftermath, this is a map that was introduced in Red Bull Wololo, one of the previous editions of Red Bull Wololo, mostly played in Empire Wars, and it's a deceiving map, at least in Empire Wars settings. You see that most of your base is stalwart, so you would think, oh yeah, this is a well-defendable map, but that wasn't the case in Empire Wars at all. In fact, most of the time players played very aggressive, because walling all these gaps was always a challenge. It's a little bit more legitimate in a random map setting. And of course, there is another component to this, which are the trade workshops. Now, the trade workshops generate gold too, or not just gold, but in general, they give you a trickle of resources. You can see the 1 food increase over time for T90 and Nili whenever they capture the trade workshops. So there is a trickle of resources, wood, food, and gold. No stone trickle coming in from these trade workshops, and that's why both players are sending out some units to contest them. T90 started by sending out a villager, he lost it, but he's gonna get compensated by the trickle of resources when he has both the trade workshops. There's a villager out here for T90. We have Loom for both players. Now, this is a weak villager for Nili. He needs to be cautious. There's a militia, but this will is weak. There's a militia coming out as well for T9 or for Nili. Going to the right side, left side, it's villagers, militias. T90 is holding this side with the militias. And on the right side, it's 3v2, but T90 does have the hill. He needs more militias to help out here if he wants to hold that. Nice micro by Nili, focusing down the weak militia. But he needs to be cautious. He loses one villager over here, and the second villager could also go down. T90 might have been fighting down hills, and he does pick 2 vills without losing either of the militias. On the right side, though, Nili is going to retaliate. He probably was focusing his micro here, hence losing the villagers on the left side. And when the dust settles, the Eco KD is apparently favoring Nili. Now, we got 1 trade workshop apiece, as T90 is going to have 3 militias fighting 3 vills here. If he wanted to, he could try fighting down hills, but it's tricky because some of his militias are heavily damaged. Nili is committing a lot to these trade workshops. T90 went for a couple of militias, but he isn't really willing to pull villagers. As I'm saying that, he's going to pull 2 more. But up until now, Nili was the one who was willing to pull more villagers to really take these trade workshops. Now we have T90 doing the same thing, trying to contest the right side. 2 fully healthy militias supported by 2 vills should take over this side, but just as T90 does that, he's about to lose the one on the left. So at the end of the day, nothing really happens. Both players will retain one of these trade workshops. Although, you see, Nili is trying to dodge a bullet over here, just trying to run around, keep control of it until he can. But T90 gets the control back. Looking at the resource banks, it's pretty much even. So neither of the players has an advantage going into Feudal Age. 4 militias versus 2, though, is the count, which means that Nili could send some of his militias with a couple of villagers to contest this trade workshop, and at the same time hold his trade workshop on the left side with like 1 or 2 militias like he's doing right now. Looks like it's a race to Feudal now, no more fighting going on. T90 has, or seemingly had a head start, but then the drop-off of food came in for Nili. He doesn't have a lot of sheep left to work with. In fact, a couple of his villagers are kind of just idling over here. Not enough sheep to work on. But it seems like both players will reach Feudal Age at pretty much the same time. Big difference, though, Nili is leading by 2 vills. So as much as you do have the trickle for both of the players, Oh, wait a second. Wait a second. T90 tried the bait. You see, he said advance to the feudal age. This is a bait that he loves. I think he's got a cast where one player resigned about this bait. He just typed in advance to the feudal age, but Nili didn't believe it. He just says no. Anyway, T90 tries all the tricks, I guess. With that being said, feudal ages will come in at the same time. Interesting. This is a lovely corner for T90. Now that we have a bit of a peaceful moment, we can talk about this position. Love this little corner for T90. He's got Hunt, he's got Berries, he's got Stone, he's got Cold, and this is easy to wall. You just wall here, wall here, wall here, and you have this nice little pocket with a lot of safe resources. On the other side for Nili, you have something similar. You could wall this area, wall here as well. You secured the Berries, the Hunt, the Gold, even a forest at the back. So, in that regard, the two maps are pretty equal. Both players have the option to play that safe pocket eco. Men-at-Arms on the way for Nili first. T90 just now reached Feudal Age. No Men-at-Arms for him just yet. He just now clicked it. Means he's 20 seconds behind, and you see the timing is going to be there for Nili. He is going to try and engage this, or, well, so I thought. Optimal would have been to engage this, like, let's say 3 seconds before the Man-at-Arms upgrade comes in, so that you are fighting already when the Man-at-Arms upgrade comes in. Now that he retreated, T90 sees the Man-at-Arms upgrade, which means that he's going to pull back his militias until he gets his own. But this means that now Nili has the hill control. He's got the second trade workshop, and you see T90 might just shift to the left and try to take this one, as we do have two Men-at-Arms creeping up here for Nili. T90 will spot that. Quick was the Lumberjacks. No success to be found there for Nili. There might be a hole here. I think there's a hole. Yeah, there's a hole. T90. Yeah, he spotted the hole, so did Nili. But those Men-at-Arms should not be able to accomplish much right here. Out here, though, T90 coming in with the clutch quick walls. Saves the villager from the Men-at-Arms. As we do have the Man-at-Arms of T90 looping around. He could overpower the two Men-at-Arms on top of this hill, and that's something that Nili knows. Nili's gonna rally the forces over here. And you see, Nili is running circles. He just wants to make sure he doesn't lose the trade workshop until the reinforcements arrive. Numbers looking slightly better for Nili now. He's got 3v2. And it looks like some of these Man-at-Arms might be fighting downhills. This is a decisive win for Nili. Keeps control over the hill. Archers arrive. Villager gets pushed away. On the northern side, Men-at-Arms will get cleaned up by T90's archers. T90 does have control over the Sacred Site, or Sacred Site Trade Workshop on the left-hand side. He sent his initial few archers to that side. This is a fascinating game to watch. It's so interesting to see how the players keep shifting back and forth between the two sides, depending on where they could build up a small numbers advantage. Nice little pick here from Nili as T90 ran into these archers with his own. But you see, the moment that T90 saw that the Man-at-Arms are on the right side, he shifted his archers to the left. Response from Nili was to overpower the Man-at-Arms on the right side and take this trade workshop. It's a back and forth, but you clearly see that neither of the players has the military prowess or the overpowering numbers to control both trade workshops. It's a matter of at least controlling one. Nili started mixing in some scouts. He's got a stable, he's got a range, and those scouts provide him with a lot of mobility. Mobility that T90 does not have. This is the first time in this game where I feel like Nili is building a considerable lead. Because from now on, he can start running around with the scouts, and just as we talked about the concept of being able to control at least one of the two trade workshops, having the mobility of these scouts allows him to contest both of those, and it's gonna be difficult for T90 to react to the slow-moving army of archers and spears. Speaking of which, this army could be caught off guard over here. Nili will try to jump on the archers. Bloodline's on the way for Nili. He also has fletching and padded archer armor, which means that he is going to have the quality advantage when it comes to the archers here. Also has the HP upgrade, or the HP bonus of the Vietnamese. One thing we didn't talk about here, given the intensity of the game, is how Tatars get their heal bonus and how meaningful that is. Especially on a map where heals are critical like this. But it looks like the archers will just sneak past here, not even caring about this villager building the market. They're heading towards the lumberjacks. One villager might get picked off though, but Nili does have the archers nearby, so these forces from T90 might get cleaned up easily. On the right side, T90 has his houses burned down, and you see this force is about to get cleaned up. Now we have 2 trade workshops for Nili, and the trickle is coming in very useful. He's floating 600 gold. With the market up, he can start buying some food for himself. He could go heavily on the archers, he's got double ranges, or he could continue mixing in some scouts if he buys some food. Archer scouts now on the way towards the gold mine of T90, and T90 needs to be cautious. These guys have bloodlines. It's not easy to kill them. It's only 2 scouts, but they do have bloodlines. Nili is waiting for the archers to arrive, though. In the meantime, T90 launches the counterattack. He's got good numbers here. He's gonna try to make a run for this hill, get the Tatar hill bonus for himself. And this is gonna be a difficult position for Nili to contest. Tower could come up here if Nili is scared, but it looks like he won't really bother with that right now. Instead, he's focusing his attention on T90's base. T90 trying to bait the scouts into the range of the TC. But the archers move in, and T90, out of sudden, just marches into the base of Nili, doing a lot of damage to those gold miners. Now, gold is not something that Nili needs immediately, so as long as he cleans this army up without losing a lot of eco, this could still be fine. But it's definitely something that's going to impact his eco. The scout derping out a little. A lot of idle time on T90's gold as well. So both players have their golds idled. Big difference is that Nili has enough resources for castle. That's actually sick. And part of that comes from the trade workshops. Both sides have been doing something similar. Hit the opponent's gold mine, idle some eco, pick some bills. But Nili does have the trickle from both trade workshops, and that's coming in clutch. Now his skirms are about to clean up the archers, and this is looking very grim for T90 now. This is just looking so sad. T90 also went for a tower on his woodline. This obviously means that even if he gets to Castle Age, he's not going to be able to add extra TCs. You see, Nili sold his stone to go up. That's how he was able to squeeze this out, kind of. Obviously, a lot of things are happening over here, so it's somewhat challenging to keep an eye out on everything that's going on. But part of the reason why Nili was able to beat T90 to Castle is because he sold his stone. Plus, he still has the trickle from now only 1 trade workshop, but he had 2 for a long time. Here come the skirms. Once again, they will push away T90's archers, and this is where this gets dicey for T90. When Castle Age comes in, you will have crossbows for Nili, but you will also have knights, or maybe even elephants. Come to think of it, elephants might make a lot more sense here. If you support them with a couple of skirms or archers, the spearman can't do much, and T90 is not in castle, so converting them is not an option. And a single elephant would do so much to hold either of these hills. Let's see if Nili goes for that. He opts to go Elite Skirm and Bodkin. But especially if he sees that T90 is not in Castle Age for a while, he might opt to add either Knights or Elephants. T90 captured both of the trade workshops now, as Nili decided to push his base instead. And Castle Age will be on the way for T90 as well. Here comes the retake from Nili. He's yet to get crossbows, and he needs to be cautious. As much as he has the numbers over here... Oh, there we go. GG is called. T90 sees that the units are inside his base. Elite skirms would start picking off the villagers. T90 would probably lose this hill as well. And I think the big thing is that when the first couple of knights arrive, it would be just impossible for T90 to fight against that. It would be such a huge momentum for Nili at that point. And with that, Nili evens out the series. Let's take a quick look at the stats. This is the big difference. You see, all resources were just better for Nili. 800 more gold, 400 more food, 400 more wood. Most of that comes from the discrepancy when it comes to controlling those trade posts. And that's why Nili was able to squeeze out a faster castle age here. Plus, of course, selling the stone helped as well, contrary to T90 building a tower from it. But at the end of the day, this map, as defendable as it looks at the beginning, it's all about those trade workshops. And that's something that Nili controlled better than T90 did in this game. And with that, Nili beats T90 to Castle Age and takes game number 2 here. Which leaves us with one game left to go. It's a decider game coming up. And we go to Volcanic Island. Civilizations, of course, you see on the screen the ones that are available. Slavs and Tatars gone for T90. He still has Spanish and he still has Teutons. And on the other side, you do have Hindustanis and Koreans. Now, Volcanic Islands is an interesting map. I could see Spanish being a thing here. I probably like Spanish a little bit more than Teutons, actually. On the other side, you have Hindustanis and you have Koreans. Spanish and Koreans on a map like Volcanic Islands play somewhat similarly. So I could see this being a Spanish versus Koreans matchup. But then again, you do have the Hindustanis. And don't sleep on that Civ. I like that a lot. I think Spanish is more legitimate for T90. I can see Nili going either way. But I think Hindustanis make a little bit more sense for him. We'll have to see how he goes. These sets are being played live, which means that we'll have to wait until they launch the game. I'm going to add the score right here to Nili. And we'll return with game number 3 in a second. In the meantime, I guess I should make an assessment of how I'm feeling casting AoE2 after essentially missing almost 2 years. I'm still in the process of catching up, and I think if you listen to this cast, you will probably see that it's a little bumpy at places, but it will probably get better in a week or 2. So hang on, folks. It's got to get better than this. Anyway, we do have the players setting up the lobby, so hang on until I get in there for you. Also, one of the things I wanted to point out, as I asked in the announcement video, in which I kind of posted that I will do some AoE2 content as well as some other games, I'm still interested in feedback regarding doing content on different channels, like separating the content to separate channels, or just doing all on this main channel. For the time being, I was thinking about keeping everything on this main channel, but that may change. Feedback is definitely welcome, and I'm open for that. All right, so here comes Volcanic Islands. If I needed to make a bet, I would probably say Koreans versus Spanish sounds most legitimate, but Spanish versus Hindustanis I could also see. I just don't see Teutons, to be honest, for T90. I might be wrong, but I think Spanish versus Koreans sounds like the most legitimate option. The game is up, and I think we can jump inside. Let's see if Nili goes for Hindustanis or the Koreans. That's the big question for me. All right. And in we go. Folks, game number 3. Last game in this best of 3 between Nili and T90. We jump into Volcanic Islands, as we have on the northern side T90 playing as the Spanish in blue, and down south we will have Nili playing as the Koreans in red. The map is Volcanic Islands. You do have all these little ponds on the side. There is some hilly terrain over here that you cannot wall, so playing this in a turtley way is challenging. You do have some deceiving looking grass over here. From a distance it might seem like a gold mine, but I assure you it's not. When it comes to the gold, this map is pretty limited on it. You do have 2 large gold piles. In fact, neither of them are as big as you would find those on a map like Arabia. It's 2 times 6 tiles. And basically no extra gold that you can take on the outside. You got quite a lot of stone though, and you got some opportunities to fish. Now, one of the things to notice is that the corners usually have larger ponds than the edges. So for T90, dropping a dock over here, getting some fishing going is a legitimate option. So it is for Nili. In fact, Nili has just a sheep over here, so this is not a villager just yet. Looks like he's gonna go lumberjacking for the time being. Same thing for T90. Now, the other interesting element of this map is the wood at the top of the hill. There is basically no extra wood to work with. Nothing. Not even a small forest that's like secondary for the players. So one of the things that will be interesting to look at on this map is how the Spanish towers and Korean towers could possibly match up, especially as this game goes deeper and deeper. Because in the long run, you will have players fighting for this wood in the middle, and both Korean and Spanish towers are great tools of accomplishing that. Especially Korean towers in the long run will be very valuable, but you cannot discount, of course, the Spanish faster building towers either. Looks like it's a 6 on wood build for Nili. T90 only has 4 on wood, but he will still be able to get the dock out in time. He's going to have enough for a fishing ship as well. On the other side, Nili should have enough just by the time he finishes the dock. T90 will scout this dock over here. Villager is a low HP and it is down hills. Opportunity for T90 to get a pick. Does he see it? Does he see it? He did not. T90 missed by just a tile. Had he seen that villager, this could have been a very problematic will for Nili. But T90 misses out on that, meaning that Nili gets away. First fishing ships will be out for both players at approximately the same time. Do have some houses coming up for T90 as kind of a preemptive wall here on the villagers. T90, he will spot the dock here from Nili. On the other side, Nili will do the same. Eco is dead even at this point. Timings of the docks were identical. Timings of the fishing ships were identical as well. Looks like Loom is just now finished for Nili. And when it comes to the feudal times, it likely will be slightly slower for T90, you see. Here comes feudal for Nili. T90 will finish the Loom before he goes up. Yeah, he should have the food for it. Now, it looks like he also pushed in 1 deer. I don't think that Nili did the same. I think... Is there deer? Wait a second. Did I get baited? I would have sworn I saw a deer for T90, but that might have been a sheep, just a little wacky inside the TC. But it looks like there is no deer on this map. Yeah, I cannot see any, so means that we have no deer to be pushed in. T90 is moving villagers towards stone, though. Now, this is intriguing. It's also interesting to watch how he's not taking this stone, which is closer to his TC, but this little one hidden in the corner. I love this a lot because it makes it much less likely that Nili will spot this. And it looks like we could see a Man-at-Arms Towers play here from T90. Remember, there is basically no backup wood to work with for the players. So if you get some towers up over here with Man-at-Arms supporting it, it's gonna be very difficult for Nili to do anything. He gets cut off from the wood, means that he cannot add any more fishing ships, means that he cannot even transition to farms. That could be a disaster. Now, Nili is gonna do something very similar. He's going to move towards the stone over here. And Nili, he will spot those militias coming forward, villagers as well. Man-at-Arms timing will be a little slow here for T90 compared to the uptime of Nili, though. This is big. This is a huge thing. You see, Nili is adding spears already. That's just to try and get rid of that one scout. And he's just rushing up the range, and you see T90, he's not even gonna go for the Man-at-Arms at this point. If the feudal age times were identical, maybe he would have done it. But now, things are getting dicey for him. Again, you cannot wall this slopey area, which means that T90 can always walk around here. So one of the things that Nili could do is drop a tower around this area to prevent the units from running past, and then wall this part. Or he could just play into archers and hold this crossing. Looks like T90, for the time being, isn't able to push deeper. Just now coming in with the Men-at-Arms upgrade. This is problematic, though. He's got 4 villagers that have been idled for the last solid minute and a half. He's gonna go for an outpost. But I think he can run past the TC here. So T90 could just go for the lumberjacks, but you see Nili knows exactly what's coming. And the problem for T90 is that he's got 4 villagers that are not gathering resources. The entire eco of Nili is working right now, and the longer T90 delays pushing these lumberjacks, the more strength Nili will have. In fact, you see, Nili is going to have enough resources for a counter tower here. Spanish builders do build faster, though. That's something that Nili needs to consider. Tower will complete for T90. I think Nili has an angle from which he can finish this, though. Yep. See, finds the angle, means that T90 cannot stop this tower from being completed. T90 will wall this in, which I like a lot. Prevents a possible counterattack from Nili. But T90 won't be able to push this anymore, which means that he's going to have to shift to the south. Now, one thing that T90 could push are those stone miners. That would be easy villager picks. Does T90 see those stone miners? I'm starting to wonder. Oh, no. Ah, this is so disappointing for T90. This map, every little one of these islands has stone on it. Or at least like 95% of them do. But it's not guaranteed. You see, this one doesn't have either. And T90 didn't scout the stone here, so it doesn't know that there are stone miners out there. There's a bit of a villager scuffle coming up over here. One villager goes down from T90. Skirm's trying to focus down the archers of Nili. We'll get rid of the first one. Second one will survive. But T90 continues on with this tower. Nili could try to counter tower this. The moment he does that, T90 will know that Nili is mining stone somewhere. Yeah, there it goes. From now on, T90 knows that Nili has to get stone from somewhere. But this tower, it's gonna take a long time to build. And you see the tower is complete already for T90. He could focus the villagers. This is gonna be a costly tower here for Nili. He's likely going to get that going, but it's going to cost him quite a few villagers, possibly. Although the tower was focusing the skirmisher, not the vills. And it looks like Nili is not going to lose more than a single villager here. There's a man-at-arms under the tower. Villagers could jump outside, or the archers could just focus it. And it looks like counter tower once again goes up. Nili is the first one to close distance to the opponent's tower, so he's going to start battering it down. And it looks like T90 will just have this aggression gotten rid of. Now, let's talk good news, bad news here. Because T90's aggression stalled out over here, but it did quite a bit of damage. Nili had no food eco for a while. Nili's TC was idled for 2 minutes 50 seconds because he did not have food to make villagers. Now, he only added 3 fishing ships as well, so it's not like he was compensated by fish. And this basically means that T90 possesses a 6 villager lead, despite the eco KD being 2 and 2. This is a huge difference. This basically means that while T90 failed to kill villagers, he accomplished what he wanted. He wanted to idle the eco of Nili, and the target was originally lumberjacks, but then he shifted south, and these berries being hit was great value. Nili is coming in with the archers. It's just one, actually 2 archers, 3 skirms. Could be a scary army for T90 to fight. T90 does have 8 skirms, but it's a forward, right? Where are the skirms at? Yeah, all the skirms are up at the front. T90 is making scouts now, picks off a villager from Nili, could find some more success against these wills, but it doesn't have anything that deals with this force. Again, a very chaotic game of AoE2 here. Nili losing additional villagers though. T90, he is going to have his lumberjacks jumped on by the archers, but he's going to get a tower up. And this is a big difference now. Nili started to lose villagers. T90 lost a single villager here as the archers broke in. But that was it. Nothing else. Nili is trying to compensate for the eco deficit with a second dock and some fishing eco. But he's now down by 11 eco. And it looks like the scouts and the skirms will once again pressure the villagers on the berries. Some villagers are also idle inside the tower. And this is looking better and better for T90. Skirms and archers harassing the villagers of T90 here. He needs something back at home, but it looks like 3 skirms will pretty much be enough. There's a scout here from Nili to make life difficult, but if you pick off the archers, this army won't be able to accomplish much more. And look at that, the scouts. T90 will just jump on the lumberjacks. Nili is focusing on this force, and this force most likely didn't see these scouts jumping the villagers. No quick walls came from him. He's starting to lose villagers, and I think that's it for him. When he clicks back here and sees all the villagers killed, there is no way he doesn't tap out. There's a pause here. I do not know. Okay. Pause. Unpause. Yes. I think when Nili sees this, it's over. That's all the villagers he has. Basically, all the villagers gone for Nili. He's down to 29 vills. No matter what he does with this little army, it's gonna be insufficient to compensate for this. He's just not pulling vills. Berry villager. Oh, the gold miners even. This is a disaster for Nili now. He lost 13 villagers. He had 4 minutes, almost 5 minutes of TC idle time. If this group of archers doesn't give him anything, this is game over. The scout is still working wonders against that skirm. Just one scout, making sure that the skirms cannot clean this army up. But this is where T90 could even send some of his forces back. Just save his eco and play from a position advantage. If he cleans this army up, this game is over for Nili. So from now on, T90 either needs to clean this up with skirmishers, using whatever he has back at home, maybe send in a couple more, or come back home with these scouts, although many of them are heavily damaged, clean this up. If Nili cannot hit T90's eco, he cannot really come back into this. It's actually funny how Nili is trying to stonewall in this stone pile, but it's not like this really bothers T90, right? Yeah, this is insignificant. Nevertheless, Nili is trying to compensate for his eco deficit with some fish, but it's gonna be difficult to get the fishing eco going when your lumberjacks have been massacred. Looks like we do have some lags between the players. That's probably the reason why we do have a pause. But still, the fact is that Nili's eco is looking very bad. T90 is like, I blame German internet. Looks like scouts will mostly be dealt with here. They have so little HP remaining, but the skirms are cleaned up. This is a scary force, but if T90 just plays into skirms, he should be able to deal with this. He's getting close to having resources for Castle Age. Now, Nili is getting close to Castle Age as well, so we might end up having both players in Castle Age at approximately the same time. But this army is about to get cleaned up. Here come the scouts, here come the skirms. Defensive towers from the left side will prevent any more break-ins. Quick walls from T90 will prevent the archers from coming in. Tower does some damage. Here come the scouts. Skirms didn't catch up with them. Okay, there they are. They just took the scenic path. I think they're actually up hills. T90 is shooting down hills with these skirms. And you see he's trying to focus down the archers before committing the scouts. Castle Age on the way for T90. Nili does have the buildings for it, and he's going to click Castle right now. Now, Nili's army on paper is larger than T90's, but I think that's a little deceiving. If he can get to Castle Age, if he can get to the crossbow plus Botkin upgrade, there could still be a bit of a shot for him. But the concern I have is that T90, he's going to be in Castle Age 2. He's going to have some knights going for him, and that's going to be very difficult for Nili to fight against. Mind you, these stone miners have not been scouted by T90 yet. If T90 ever scouts them, these guys will also get taken down. Villagers Moving out to the flanks will be intercepted by T90. Another one buys the dust for Nili. And more importantly, T90 will spot the docks. He now knows that Nili is going to fish, which actually means that T90 is actually uncertain about the extent of his eco lead, especially because Nili has the score lead. So this is deceiving for T90. He's got a 16 eco lead. This is a gigantic lead that T90 has, at least on the eco department, but it doesn't really show in the score, and it doesn't really... This isn't really something that T90 is super conscious about. He knows he killed a lot of Vills, but he actually doesn't know how big the TC idle time was for Nili, which is part of the reason why Nili is so much behind on eco. And he also doesn't exactly know how many fishing ships Nili has. That being said, T90 should know that his eco is looking better than Nili's. Looks like we will have a siege workshop coming up here, just as a response to the archers. Naturally, with Castle Age coming in, Guard Tower is upgraded automatically for Nili, meaning that this is going to be a nice defensive position for him. He's going to play into a second TC. This is a must-have for Nili. Nili knows fully well how many villagers he lost, meaning that he needs to build up a second TC, get the villager production going to compensate for all those losses in feudal. Stone being piled up here by Nili is getting him closer and closer to a castle being dropped. Now, when that happens, things get spicier, because once war wagons start rolling, this is not so good for T90. Or, well, I guess it's not the scenario being bad or good, it's the fact that you have war wagons, which are pricey, but unless you have monks to deal with them, they are difficult to get rid of. They do have some mobility, so Nili is going to have a tool in his hands which allows him to start picking off villagers every once in a while. That's something for T90 to consider. There's a second TC coming up for T90 as well, and it looks like Nili is getting close to that castle. Realistically, he probably needs it here. He could use a castle elsewhere, but I feel like he needs to secure this gold mine. You see, this is one of the gold mines he has to work with, but the other one is being denied by these towers. If he wants to ever get this gold for himself, he needs a castle here. Yeah, there it is. Here comes the castle. That castle should clean up the tower. Now, this is a little tricky because here come the knights, here comes the mangonel, but Nili should be able to finish this castle. What's more alarming for Nili is that these knights could intercept all these villagers. The castle will finish. The question is how many villagers will get picked off while it's being built. There's a monk for Nili out there, but it's out of range. One villager gets picked off. Quick Wall's coming in for Nili. He's still down by 21 eco. Here come the scouts. Stone mine, or I guess the place of the stone mine, just got spotted by T90. You see he's even turning back, but there is no one to be found over there anymore. Third TC for T90 on the way as well. There's the castle, and here come the war wagons. Now, for T90, he needs monks here. If Nili gets like 6-7 war wagons without T90 having a considerable amount of monks, it's gonna be problematic for T90. Good mangonel shot. It was an uphill shot by T90, but he still got the middle of the group. Picks off 2 crossbows, damages quite a few units over here. It's a big one for T90. But as I said, he needs monks, above all. He sees the castle, he should know war wagons are coming. Knights roaming around. Nili's got some good walls going. It's gonna be difficult for T90 to just dive into the eco, especially with this castle being here, especially with 2 DCs being here. And it looks like T90 is working his way towards light cav. Now, I'm not against that, especially on a map where you have a limited amount of gold to work with, but I don't know if light cav by itself is gonna be a solution to the war wagon problem. Here come the war wagons. One mangonel goes down. But this is a nice jump by the knights. Monk will be focused down. A lot of these crossbows are heavily damaged, so the knights can do a lot of damage here. And T90 gets caught out in the open. Monk pops out at an unfortunate time for Nili. He won't make it to the tower. The scout gets the kill. War Wagons make it to the eco of T90. He's still yet to add a single Monk. But other than those two War Wagons, Nili couldn't break out of his base so far. There's the third TC for him. Players are creeping closer and closer to each other in the middle. It's getting more and more challenging. Resisting the temptation to start thinking about towers in the middle. It's not time yet, of course. The distance is still way too big. But if this game goes long, you will start seeing towers here in the middle. T90 is floating a lot of gold, by the way. He's got 1100 gold. I wonder what the plan is with that. Might just be a slight miss macro. Because I don't really see him using it to anything at this point. Now, he could buy stone and drop a castle. He's buying wood. Okay, it's a stable. I wouldn't mind a castle here. In fact, one of the intriguing things that T90 could do is get a castle up here and then try to make it to Imperial. He's got a lot of gold income. If he stops making knights for a moment, he could think about Imp and then start trapping down this castle. If he gets rid of the castle, there are no more War Wagons available for Nili. Now, he's under pressure right now, so this would be a bad time to do this. But if this pressure goes away or just gets cleaned up, that's an opportunity for T90 to consider that. War Wagons will try to focus down the Mangonel. Mango does get a good hit. Villagers will be committed for repairs. You gotta be cautious with that Monk out there. But there's one light cav jumping on the Monk. It's friendly fire time. The Mangonel just takes down the light cav. The Monk gets away with, well, not full HP, but will get healed up by the friendly Monk nearby. Mangonel went down. War Wagon's still alive. And it looks like Nili's yoinking the relic as well, or at least he's attempting to do that. Monk will be caught, and there's the castle from T90. As all of this chaos was going on the left side, T90 gets a castle up right next to the base of Nili. And this is where, as I said, he could start thinking about Imperial, getting some traps out, getting rid of that castle, producing those War Wagons. He's going to try to dive the Monks here. One conversion happens. Second Knight also gets converted. It's a big conversion out there, but it looks like T90 will finish the job. Gets one of the kills. Mangonel cleans up the crossbows. And this is what T90 has been waiting for. Clean up this force, start banging up food, make it to Imperial. Now, the interesting thing is that Nili is also thinking about Imp at this point. The big difference is that as much as T90 has raiding parties here to harass Nili, that's not applicable vice versa. And you see Villager KD once again going in the favor of T90. 104 eco against 69. And when these knights are committed against this gold mine, it gets dicey for Nili. Not only that, but when Nili runs out of this gold, he cannot mine this. This castle does not secure the gold mine because of this castle being here for T90. This is why it's so crucial to make it to Imperial, because whoever wins this battle between the two castles will dictate who has access to this gold and who does not. Oh no, Nili. It's bad. I don't think Nili's gonna get punished for this, but this would be a way to throw a game. Imperial Age coming in on the forward TC. That's something that could lose your game. The reason why this won't matter here is because despite T90 beating Nili to Imperial, first, it's only about 15 seconds, so T90 won't have any traps there. Second, even if T90 beat Nili to Imperial by 2 minutes, he would focus the castle, because you want to get rid of that castle to stop the War Wagon production and just to secure more of this area. So even if T90 had a larger advantage to Imperial, he wouldn't focus the TC. Now, I guess this is a right time to say that I was probably wrong about my assessment when it comes to Nili's position previously. It looked very grim. He was behind an eco so much. The only reason why... I guess the only reasonable explanation of him being able to come back into this one was the War Wagons. These are extremely cost efficient. He also took some good fights with the Monks, got some Knight conversions. And if T90 went for a couple of Monks here to kind of try to get some conversions on those War Wagons, then I feel like Nili wouldn't have been as successful with these War Wagons as he was. And it would have been much more difficult for Nili to climb back into this one. Second castle coming up. When you have a castle standoff, you race for the second one because you want that trap production. Second castle coming up here for Nili should also be a telltale sign for T90 that Nili is also going in. Seeing each other's second castle is an indication that you will be going to a trap race. So I think both players knew in advance that the opponent is going into Imperial. They do get the notifications just now. But Nili does have one advantage that T90 doesn't have here. That's the hill. There's a hill here. So every trap shot that Nili will fire will be downhills. In fact, one of the things that Nili will do with the traps being produced on this castle is pull them to this little hill. Very safe location, but he can trap down this castle from this hill. So Nili is going to have the hill and T90 won't. War Wagon numbers rising. Here come the Mangonels though, beautiful downhills hit. Looks like Nili won't prioritize the hill though. That will extend the lifetime of these castles from T90. But it's getting better and better for Nili. He's about to start cleaning up the castles on the right. Villagers will be levied to repair. Nili doesn't have stone available to be mined. He's not mining any stone right now, which means that he cannot sustain repairs on that castle. Here come the light cav. Beautiful body blocks by the war wagons to prevent the light cavs from jumping on the monks. Looks like they do find an angle. Villagers will also try to prevent the monks from being picked, but one of the monks goes down. Mangonel does a lot of damage to these war wagons. Light cav also come back from behind, and this is a good push by T90. He's got a Mangonel here. He's got some Conquistadors too, and the gold miners are now being harassed. Right side, trebuchets from T90 will trade a castle to the ones from Nili. A trade of castles is not good for Nili, of course. He needs to keep at least one castle going so he can continuously produce the war wagons. Many of the war wagons heavily damaged now. Conquistador is now coming in for Nili, or from T90 actually. There are some light cavs moving in too, and now Nili is being cut off from gold. Traps are still trading. T90 pushing deeper and deeper. Mangonel's creeping up. I think T90 could jump on those traps with the light cav he has, but he prioritizes the war wagons up until now. Now goes for the traps. Light cav do have the last pierce armor, so the TC fire wouldn't help much. Two traps go down. Mangonel is gone. Conquistador is gone. Some villagers somehow getting caught in the middle of this. And it looks like T90 will lose both of his castles. Right now he's trying to snipe the traps of his opponent, but the war wagons will move in on the traps of T90. And I think Nili will be able to keep one of these castles up. Yeah, T90 is going to pull the traps. This is such a fascinating game. It's very chaotic, very back and forth. Critical hold here from Nili. It was a consistent production of traps on both sides, but at the end of the day, Nili had the repair power that T90 did not, and that's part of the reason why one of these castles stay alive. Now, a lot of war wagons were sacrificed on the left flank by Nili, and you see light cavs are now coming in for T90. Hussar upgrade, blast furnace on the way too. There's a trickle of light cav coming in from the left side as well. It will make it very difficult for Nili to access gold. Now, keep in mind that this is the perfect time for Nili to retake this gold. He just ran out on the left side. So getting rid of these castles comes at the best possible time for Nili. But it's not like his army is huge. He's got 8 war wagons. There are some elite skirms. There are some hussars coming in. And his eco is still a little feeble, but he's getting back on track. The last 5 minutes, Nili has had a much better game than T90. Nili is still alive, down by 40 population, but his eco is catching up to T90's. War wagons, very cost-efficient units. They will be kept alive. I would love to see some monk actually out there to heal them. Some light cavs now moving in from T90 though. This is a good raid. He needs this raid. He needs to lower the villager count of his opponent. And there's the tower in the middle that we talked about. Trebuchets from T90 will start lining up to take down these TCs. And in a blink of an eye, Nili's position just got a lot worse. A lot of idle time, quite a few villagers picked. War wagons still intact, but T90 skirm numbers are rising. Skirms do pretty well against all those war wagons. More villagers getting picked. And I think this is where it's going to get dicey for Nili. He's going to start losing TCs. Makes it much more difficult to catch up on the villager count. It's also important to note that the fishing ship, or the fishing ships, they've pretty much depleted the fish in the ponds. So they now have to work on fish traps. But here come the Hussars. Skirms supporting them. They're lagging behind a tiny bit. But a lot of these war wagons are heavily damaged. No healing came onto them. And T90 trying to get a good surround here. Gets a decent one. Nili should jump into the castle, possibly. Try and save these war wagons. Indeed, he does that. Jumps out on the other side. Makes it more difficult for T90's Hussars to jump. Pikemen being mixed in by Nili. But there's a response already out from T90. And this is more alarming for Nili. If anything, this is the most concerning part of the game right now for Nili. He's about to get cut out, or cut off from wood. In a moment where his buildings are being trapped down. Now there's going to be some counter-trapping coming in here for Nili. But you see his resource bank is rather underwhelming. He's basically not mining gold. He's got little wood to work with, basically no food, not even a lot of farms. On the other side, T90 has a full farm transition completed. He's got a lot of lumberjacks, some gold miners still working. T90's eco just feels a lot healthier. Here come the Hussars, good raids coming in again. And you see the skirms are now shutting down this gold mine. The army for Nili cannot deal with the skirms right now. War wagons will die to the skirms, pikemen will die to the skirms. But if Nili doesn't fight this, he's gonna be denied of gold. Not only is he denied of gold, he's also denied of wood right now. He gotta keep up over here, which means that T90 could end up losing villagers if he's not cautious, and he trapped down the tower of T90, but now he's about to lose the castle here. It's an even ground fire from T90. It's going to get rid of the castle very quickly. Means that now there is no more war wagon production from Nili. Army numbers decisively in the favor of T90. Population heavily in the favor of our blue player. Now the skirms will dive. They will start picking off all those war wagons. And I think this is over for Nili. I cannot help but wonder how this game would have gone if Nili didn't end up in Castle Age with a massive deficit. T90 will secure this game over here. But it all goes back to that Feudal Age story. The damage that was done to Nili. You see, at 1630, the eco population was dead even. But around the 21-minute mark, it's 44 to 28. Nili did his best to catch up, and there were moments where he almost caught up to T90. You see, especially in this area, it was like 108 versus 100 at some point. Was it 100? No, it was like something like... Yeah, this is about the time I was thinking about. 108 against 82. There were moments where Nili seemed like he was going to catch up. And the war wagons, they are very cost-effective units. So he probably would have survived if he had, let's say, 80 or 90% of T90's eco. But the fact that he was down so much when he got to Castle Age just made his life very difficult. And in the end, it's escalation from T90. This map is very momentum-based. If you lose momentum, you will have your wood denied, you will have your gold denied, and there are just no fallback options. Nili couldn't go anywhere else to mine the gold. Nili couldn't go anywhere else to chop the trees, and it showed. And of course, let's not underestimate the fact that when you're down by 15, 20 eco throughout the entire game, it adds up. You see, by Imperial Age, there was 10,000 more resources gathered by T90. By the end of the game, it went all the way up to 20,000. But the story began here in the middle of Feudal Age, where T90 was able to do so much eco damage. And after that, there was just little room for Nili to recover. And with that, T90 secures the series and moves on to the next round of the Return of the Reverse Pick tourney. Alright, folks. This was Return of the Reverse Pick. Also was Return of Lidacor to casting AoE2 after missing out quite a bit of a time. I would lie if I said I was fully satisfied with my cast over here. I think I'm still a little rusty, and I do need to get back to a couple of things. But I felt good, and I will get some more AoE2 content out over time here, alongside other content as well that I did mention in the video, in which I kind of announced my plans for content for the coming year or so. I will put a link to that video down in the description of this video. So if you want to check out the news about it, then that's the place to look. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining me today. If you did enjoy, I appreciate if you drop a like on the video. I appreciate if you sub to this channel. It does help a lot when it comes to getting found by the YouTube algorithm. It does help a lot when it comes to the metrics, and it does help my work a lot. So thank you so much, everybody, for joining in. This is my first cast of AoE2 in a while. Hopefully you enjoyed, and I will see you next time.